Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In this video I'd like to look at some advanced techniques that our more experienced users can do that will enable them to trade against the STF colour. What do I mean by that? Well, if I go back in time on this chart is a 5-minute chart of the 6B, which is the future of the British pound against the US dollar. So the future of the British pound against the US dollar, so we're looking at a currency chart. When we have setups, we try and filter them in the direction of our trend indicator, which is this coloured indicator down here. So blue or black indicates an uptrend, so therefore you can look to take trades that are in the direction of that trend. So this TS3 buy setup here was a great example of being in the direction of the trend. It went up to this level, using correct position sizing, produced a very nice profit at the first target of plus 3.8R. So that's a standard trade. But what I want to look at are these cells up here. Now you can see that this did indeed nail this high brilliantly before the sharp fall. So the question being is, how can the advanced traders get into this when these are against the blue STF? Well, the only time I ever consider going against our STF colour is when you're at larger degree support or resistance. So for this, let's see what the 15-minute chart was doing as this 5-minute chart was getting up into these levels around the 61.55 level. So let's click over to the 15-minute chart and take a look at the position going into this level here, which is the 61.50 going into here. Well, if I go back in time, what I can do is put a DP, manual DP, a decision point resistance zone on the chart in advance. So for this I just simply choose swing high or low, then I click on a pivot on the chart. In this case the pivot I'd want to choose is this one, because it's the pivot just before the move down into this low. So here's a low here. So I'll click on this pivot and it would actually give me an area in advance, you see, even well before the market got there, of an area of where 15-minute resistance is anticipated. And as we can see, the market did indeed go right up into this level here and then backed off beautifully. But the point being is that around this 61.50 level, the 15-minute chart was indicating resistance, so therefore the advanced traders on the 5-minute chart could then consider going against our STF colour. Just before we move back to the 5-minute chart, I want to again have a look at the last swing going up into this high, which is this swing. So I'm going to take a DP off this pivot, because this is the level where we'd anticipate the market to go down into, which is the 60.96 level, if a high came in here. So I want to remember that when we go back to the 5-minute chart. But the point being is that the 15-minute chart was at DP resistance, so therefore when we go back to the 5-minute chart, i.e. the shorter time frame, advanced traders among you could then consider trade setups like this, which are against the trend colour here. The reason we consider this slightly more advanced is because these tend to pick the end of a trend. They're trend termination setups. So you tend to have more failures on these trades, but when the trade comes in a successful one, as we'll see in a minute, the move is usually strong, therefore the profits are very, very large. If we put the initial analysis on this sell setup, we had an initial target down here, but do you remember on the 15-minute chart we had a target a bit lower, and that was actually off the equivalent swing low of here. So I'll put that on the chart again, around our 60.96 level, if you remember, that was down here. So actually we're anticipating that the market is going to get all the way down to here, not this level. So rather than considering a trade at 2.1R profit here, we'd actually be looking to come a bit further down to this level for an almost 7.9R trade. But the point being is that this DP sell was legitimate because it was at the 15-minute resistance. Yes, we did have a losing trade first, so if I put the analysis on this setup here, you see history triangles, you can always place the analysis on, so we don't hide anything, you always know what's going on. So we did have a first stab at coming in on a short trade here. You'd have been short here, market went down a bit, came back up and stopped you out. So this would have been a minus 1R loss. We can see that here because it hit the trigger, minus 1R. However, the next trade, as it comes down to the bottom here, would be far, far greater than this. Another tool I'd like to quickly look at as well is our Elliott wave tools. Because as the market was coming down to these levels here, particularly the lower DP, let's have a look and see what our Elliott wave tool made of this as well. So again, it's a real easy, simple matter of just clicking on choose swing high or low, clicking on this low here, and then an Elliott wave 1, 2, 3 swing was found. But just look where this low came in, right at the typical wave 3 WPT. This is the most likely area where wave 3s are to end. So as the market got down into this level, you could at the very least want to trail your stop just above the bar's highs. And as you can see, this then would have stopped the trade out for a lovely plus 8.4R profit. Just a revision on what that means, 8.4R means 8.4 risk units, or 8.4 times greater than the initial risk. So you remember back here we lost minus 1R, but here we made plus 8.4. So in this case, for an initial risk of just under $400, the profit was approximately $3,300. So the profit was approximately 8 times greater than the initial risk. That's what makes money using correct position sizing. We also have a TS3 trade here, but that's actually against a red STF, so again that would be considered an advanced trade. But the point I'm looking at in this particular video is how can we, as advanced traders, take or consider trade setups that are against the STF, and the times that we can do that is when they fall at larger degree support or resistance. And as we've seen in this example, these DP sells here were at a 15-minute DP resistance, so therefore the advanced traders among you could consider them. The first one was a minus 1R loss. The loss kept small and under control. The second trade came down here to end up right at the typical wave 3 WPT for a nice 8.4R profit. So a great result with some simple analysis for the more advanced MTPredictor traders among you.